The architectural history of Antwerp. Antwerp is a city that tells its story through stone, brick, glass, and steel. Every street, square, and skyline view feels like a page from a long architectural book written over nearly 1,000 years. To understand Antwerp's architecture is to understand its rise as a medieval trading port, its golden age during the Renaissance, its struggles through war and decline, and its modern rebirth as a global city of design and innovation. This is not a city shaped by one single style. Instead, Antwerp is a layered city, where Gothic towers stand beside Baroque churches, where medieval guild houses face modernist buildings, and where bold contemporary architecture reflects centuries of ambition and reinvention. Let's take a journey through the architectural history of Antwerp, step by step, era by era. 1. Medieval origins. The birth of a trading city. Antwerp's architectural story begins in the Middle Ages, around the 10th and 11th centuries. At that time, Antwerp was a small settlement along the River Scheldt. The river was everything. It was the city's lifeline, its road to trade, wealth, and influence. Early medieval buildings were practical rather than decorative. Most homes were made of wood, which has not survived. What remains from this period are stone structures tied to defense, religion, and power. The fortress city. One of the earliest surviving landmarks is Het Steen, Antwerp's medieval fortress. Built in the early 13th century, it served as a defensive stronghold overlooking the river. Thick stone walls, narrow windows, and a compact form show how architecture, at this time, was focused on protection. Beauty was secondary to survival. Het Steen represents the moment Antwerp began to see itself as a city worth defending. Early churches and Gothic beginnings. As Antwerp grew, so did its churches. Stone replaced wood, and Gothic architecture slowly took shape. Tall pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and narrow vertical windows began to dominate religious buildings. These early Gothic churches were not just places of worship. They were symbols of stability and community in a rapidly growing town. 2. The Gothic peak. Antwerp as a medieval powerhouse. By the 14th and 15th centuries, Antwerp had transformed into one of the most important cities in Northern Europe. Trade exploded, wealth poured in, and architecture responded with confidence and ambition. The Cathedral of Our Lady. The greatest symbol of this era is the Cathedral of Our Lady. Construction began in 1352, and it remains one of the finest examples of Gothic architecture in Europe. Its soaring tower dominates the skyline, rising over 120 meters high. Inside, the cathedral feels light and vertical, drawing the eye upward. Slender columns, pointed arches, and stained glass windows create a sense of spiritual elevation. This cathedral was not just a religious building. It was a statement. Antwerp had arrived as a major European city. Civic pride in stone buildings. During this time, wealth allowed the city to replace wooden houses with stone ones. Guilds became powerful, and their meeting halls and homes were built with pride. Stone facades, stepped gables, and decorative details began to appear. Architecture became a way to display success, identity, and belonging. 3. The Renaissance boom, architecture, trade, and confidence. The 16th century marked Antwerp's golden age. It became the richest city north of the Alps, a global trading hub where goods, ideas, art, and architecture flowed freely. With wealth came a new architectural language, the Renaissance. Italian influence in the north. Antwerp merchants traveled widely and brought back ideas from Italy. Classical symmetry, columns, decorative reliefs, and balanced proportions entered the city's architecture. This new style blended with local traditions, creating a unique Antwerp Renaissance. Antwerp City Hall. The finest example is the Antwerp City Hall, completed in 1565. Its facade is symmetrical and elegant, inspired by Italian palaces. Columns, pediments, and sculptural details give a sense of order and authority. This building symbolized Antwerp's political and economic power at its peak. Guild houses on the Grote Market. Surrounding the City Hall, the guild houses display wealth and identity. Each guild expressed a profession through symbols carved into facades. These buildings were rebuilt over time, often blending Renaissance and later Baroque elements. But their origins lie in this golden era of confidence and creativity. 4. Decline and Baroque brilliance. Antwerp's prosperity did not last forever. Political conflict, religious war, and the closure of the Scheldt River in the late 16th century led to economic decline. Many merchants left, and the city's influence faded. Yet architecturally, this period produced some of Antwerp's most dramatic and emotional buildings. The rise of Baroque architecture. In the 17th century, Antwerp became a center of Baroque architecture, closely tied to the Catholic Counter-Reformation. Baroque buildings were meant to inspire awe, emotion, and faith. Peter Paul Rubens and architecture. The artist Peter Paul Rubens played a key role in shaping Antwerp's Baroque identity. His influence extended beyond painting into architecture. Rubens designed his own house, now the Rubenshuis, inspired by Italian Renaissance and Baroque villas. It blends art, architecture, and personal expression, showing how architecture became more theatrical and expressive. Baroque churches. Churches like St. Charles Borromeo Church are masterpieces of Baroque design. Rich decoration, dramatic light, sculptural facades, and emotional interiors reflect the religious intensity of the time. Baroque Antwerp may have been economically weaker, but architecturally it was bold, expressive, and deeply human. 5. 18th and 19th centuries change industry and expansion. As Europe moved toward industrialization, Antwerp slowly adapted. The 18th century was relatively quiet architecturally, but the 19th century brought major transformation. Industrial growth and urban expansion. The reopening of the Scheldt River in the 19th century revived Antwerp's economy. Industry, shipping, and railways reshaped the city. Architecture became larger, more functional, and more diverse. Neoclassicism and order. Neoclassical buildings appeared, emphasizing symmetry, restraint, and classical references. Government buildings, banks, and institutions adopted this style to convey stability and authority. Antwerp Central Station. One of the greatest architectural achievements of this era is Antwerp Central Station, completed in the early 20th century. Often called a railway cathedral, it combines stone, steel, and glass in a dramatic composition. The massive dome, grand staircases, and detailed decoration reflect pride in engineering and progress. This building shows how architecture adapted to modern technology without losing beauty. 6. Art Nouveau and Early Modernism. Around the turn of the 20th century, Antwerp embraced Art Nouveau, a style that celebrated nature, craftsmanship, and new materials. Curves, iron, and glass. Art Nouveau buildings featured flowing lines, floor motifs, iron balconies, and decorative facades. These buildings brought elegance to residential streets and reflected a desire for beauty in everyday life. A bridge to modernism. As the 20th century progressed, architecture became simpler, ornament faded, and function took priority. Early modernist buildings appeared, emphasizing clean lines and efficiency. World War I and World War II interrupted development, leaving scars on the city, but also opening space for renewal. 7. Post-war architecture. Function and recovery. After World War II, Antwerp faced reconstruction and modernization. The focus shifted to practicality, housing, and infrastructure. Modernist housing and offices. Concrete apartment blocks, office towers, and functional buildings replaced damaged areas. These structures were often plain and utilitarian, reflecting the urgency of rebuilding. While some criticize this architecture for lacking charm, it represents an honest response to the needs of the time. 8. Contemporary Antwerp, bold, creative, and forward-looking. Today, Antwerp is once again a city of innovation. Modern architecture does not erase the past, but interacts with it. The Port House. The most iconic contemporary building is the Port House, designed by Zaha Hadid. Sitting atop a historic fire station, the futuristic glass structure resembles a ship or a diamond. This building symbolizes Antwerp's identity, rooted in history, oriented toward the future. Adaptive reuse. Old warehouses, docks, and industrial buildings have been transformed into museums, offices, and cultural spaces. This approach respects history while allowing new life to emerge. Sustainability and urban design. Modern Antwerp focuses on sustainability, public space, and human-scale design. Architecture today is not just about buildings, but about how people live, move, and connect. 9. Antwerp's architectural identity. What makes Antwerp special is not one monument or style, but the way different eras coexist. Medieval fortresses stand beside Gothic cathedrals. Renaissance palaces face Baroque churches. Industrial landmarks coexist with modern glass structures. Antwerp's architecture reflects resilience, ambition, and constant reinvention. Conclusion: a city written in stone. The architectural history of Antwerp is the story of a city that has risen, fallen, and risen again. It is a story of trade and faith, art and industry, tradition and innovation. Walking through Antwerp is like walking through time. Every building speaks, every facade remembers, and together, they form a city that continues to build its future without forgetting its past.